Hello, and welcome. It is Doug Diamond. You have reached another Diamond Report Live. Hope you're doing well on a Sunday night, 10:11 p.m., June the 25th, 2023. And I thought you might like to go through the news with me. So I'm glad you're here, and we've got a pretty good crowd here. Looks like some folks are chatting away in the chat in YouTube, and we're also on my two Facebook pages. So it looks like we're off and running. So let's take a look at the news. Lots of stuff to go over tonight. First of which, HalTurnerRadioShow.com. Prigozhin is the big story, apparently, at least as of yesterday, for a few hours. So here's what it says. Update. Prigozhin, never mind. Rebellion canceled. Russia descending into civil war. Putin addresses nation. Treason. Mutiny. U.S. NATO nuclear first strike if Wagner gets Russian nukes. Russian Air Force bombs Wagner PMC convoys. Well, it was much ado about nothing, as you guys may know. This is the guy in question, Prigozhin. And this is a fairly long article, which I won't go through the whole thing, but I'm sure you guys have been following this story as to what happened. And there's been lots of reporting from various sources throughout the day today, people trying to unravel it and figure out exactly what happened. Let me go down here to the bottom. I think this kind of sums it up pretty well. There's lots of info on this page on HalTurnerRadioShow.com. This is some analysis from a guy I respect. This is an intelligence source, apparently, from Hal Turner. It says this analysis is not mine, meaning Hal's. It comes from a guy in Europe whom I respect. I think you'll like it. From recent events, I can conclude the following. Wagner mutiny was very likely staged operation. Fallout of ostensible rebellion provided cover for fast military movement with numerous air defense units and thousands of troops reaching western borders of Russia practically unnoticed as everyone was focused on the Prigozhin insurgency. Without mutiny pretext, such massive movement would have been seen and mainly linked directly to Ukraine very quickly. If I consider that Russia already did some serious preparations to protect its capital with roadblocked and checkpoints raised, I think Russia is about to blow a heavy strike on Kiev and its forces, if not even further. And all this protective measures ostensibly related to mutiny were done actually as protective measures if NATO will decide to intervene. If my conclusions are correct, then such a blow will come in the next hours or days, meaning to Ukraine from Russia. So I thought that was a pretty good synopsis. I've heard other people also trying to untangle exactly what happened and why it happened so quickly. This article also from notthebee.com. Here's a quick explainer on what's happening between Wagner and the Russian military. So let's see what this says. Russian paramilitary group Wagner made headlines overnight and into Saturday after the group's owner and leader, Prigozhin, vowed to strike back against the Russian military over alleged allegations that government troops had killed a significant number of his private mercenaries. In a nutshell, Prigozhin claims that Russian troops fired on and killed his own men as the latter fought in eastern Ukraine. The private group and the Russian military have been butting heads recently over the direction of the Ukrainian war and the credit due to the private group over its conduct in it. Prigozhin has also publicly criticized the Kremlin for not sending them enough ammunition and supplies, leading to deaths of his fighters. In a proactive display of retaliation, Wagner troops have marched on and seized the key southern city of Rostov-on-Don. Putin, meanwhile, has indicated that there will be a swift and severe retaliation for the military action. And I did watch a video directly from him. If you follow Putin Direct on Telegram, you can get videos directly from the president of Russia whenever he issues them. Of course, it's the official release, so I'm sure that it's loaded with propaganda, but certainly not as much as you might find in the U.S. So yeah, Putin Direct on Telegram, highly recommended. So I watched that yesterday as well. I had it queued up for tonight. However, I don't think we'll watch it. It's just all subtitle reading, and I think we can kind of sum it up reading a few of these other articles. So moving on, it says Prigozhin has vowed to continue on to Moscow and appears to be on his way already. Security has been greatly heightened at the capital city and important military sites near it. Russia's Federal Security Service, the successor to the Soviet KGB, has reportedly opened a criminal case against the paramilitary leader, and Putin has ordered his military to crush the Wagner coup. Well, obviously, none of this happened. It didn't need to happen. And update at the end here, it says, and it's over. So a deal was reached, but it makes one wonder for sure if it was planned to happen the way it happened. I mean, we don't really know. I've heard stories that Prigozhin and Putin were friends, and pretty close friends, and it's possible that they could have come up with this in order to scam the West out of a bunch of money. I'm not exactly sure that's happened. However, I don't think we'll ever really know for sure. I do think that Prigozhin has pretty much gone off the deep end and thought that he could overthrow Putin and the Russian military. From what I understand, that's primarily what happened, and that the CIA and that NATO wanted to be involved and were cheering for Prigozhin. However, I don't know for sure that they were actually involved. So we're going to keep looking at that as we move forward tonight. We've got some other articles pulled up on that very subject. So we'll kind of come back to this as I get around to those tabs. We've got lots of articles on these tabs here to look at across the top of my screen. You can probably see them all. I found this one too. Universal basic income and the anti-human agenda. No less than 80 UBI trials are underway globally, and many more have already started and ended. UBI is an original construct of technocracy from the 1930s, where everyone in society would receive the same allocation of energy script that would expire at the end of the allocation period. Today, UBI solves the problem of unemployables, picking up too many pitchforks and torches to attack the technocrat Earth destroyers. That UBI is being tested globally proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is an initiative of the global oligarchy that promotes technocracy, that is, the Great Reset. That UBI was first clearly defined in the 1930s by the formal technocracy movement, proves its origin. So, yeah, universal basic income. So that's going to be part of the Great Reset, no doubt, whenever that happens. I do think that we're not all that far away from that happening. And there's a lot of detail here on this particular article on UBI and what that is, exactly how it works, universal basic income. But you will have to capitulate. You will have to become part of the beast system in order to get it. And of course, they'll just happen to own everything too on top of it, so that you will own nothing and be happy, as Klaus Schwab and company say. That is definitely part of the plans. And in order to get your universal basic income, you'll have to capitulate to all their demands coming from the globalist agenda, meaning you have to fit the carbon footprint or else you get nothing. So yeah, that's where it's headed for sure, unless we say no. The transhumans' billion-dollar quest for immortality, the fact that thousands of genetic and medical scientists around the world are working feverishly to cure the, quote, disease of death, should tell us that this isn't just a fad. Public money funds universities. Billionaires like Musk and Peter Thiel and Jeff Bezos are investing heavily. Transhumanism is here to stay, and it is gaining power and influence over traditional science. So yeah, there's more on transhumanism here, and this is one subject that Patrick Wood and company on technocracy.news does a really good job of covering. So feel free to look at that if you have the time, technocracy.news. And I found this one and thought, this is something you probably don't know about. I certainly didn't know about it. I knew about the big empty cities that China had, and I'm sure you guys have heard of that over the years. It goes back many years. China building big expanses of empty cities that aren't being used in order to facilitate the steel industry and to keep the steel industry rolling. Well, guess what? They're doing the same thing with electric cars. China is throwing away fields of electric cars. Hundreds of thousands of electric vehicles, EVs, are rotting away in fields. China boasts that EV sales are outpacing the rest of the world and outselling Tesla. China's EV manufacturers need high production numbers and sales, quote unquote, to get subsidies from the government and investment capital. The EV scheme is similar to the recent shared bicycle scheme that was used to get investment money, similar to a Ponzi scheme, instead of implementing a practical transportation program or green policies. EV batteries inside the rotting cars are toxic. So let's watch this. I'm going to stay on screen. I'm going to play a little bit of this video. We're partway through it, and I think it's really important just to kind of get an idea on more craziness that China is involved in. And notice that they are not being held accountable by the globalists and the environmentalists and none of that. They get a free pass. So let's watch this video. Here it is.
You see the Neta Vs and the BYDs and the bigger brands that you see huge amounts of them just parked out to rot. Well, you see, that's because they need the numbers. In order to get subsidies from the government, in order to put out the sales figures that they've sold more than Tesla and that they're leading in EV production and EV sales, they need to have these fake sales. So BYD themselves will register them and put them on the market and then claim that they've been sold. And then, of course, they've got all those excess cars and they just stick them in a field. And
you can make history tomorrow.
But there's a bigger problem. There are even more car graveyards. And that has to do with a stupid investment scheme. Let me explain. In China, very often you get these fly-by-night investment schemes. Someone comes up with a good idea like bicycle sharing, for instance. And guess what? People jump on the bandwagon. They raise a bunch of investment capital. They start a company. We saw it go absolutely crazy with the shared bicycle schemes. We covered this on the China show, where we showed these mountains of bicycles that had been discarded because the companies knew that if they pumped these bikes out, they'd keep getting investment. So they just kept pumping them out, even when it wasn't financially viable, because like a Ponzi scheme, you just keep getting your investment money in. And all of these bike companies pretty much shut down except for two. And a lot of the people that started these bike companies ran away with the investment money, never to be seen again. The bicycle sharing schemes kind of came to an end in late 2018. And then suddenly, and because the bicycle sharing investment scheme had now disappeared, people stepped in with a new investment scheme for shared vehicles. And this time it was for electric cars. Now, there's this fantastic video, which I'm going to link below in the description. You can see it in the background here. But there's a documentary filmmaker who went and took drone footage of the shared bikes. And he made this video called No Place to Place in 2018, where he showed all of these massive mountains of the shared bike failures. But he then went in 2019 to film the fields of abandoned electric vehicles. So this is No Place to Place 2. And what you're seeing are these fields of shared cars. You see, the idea like shared bicycles would be that you have an app. And if you need a car, you can look in your app and see, oh, there's a shared car nearby, a shared electric vehicle. And you go and you unlock it with your app and you can drive to your destination and then lock it again. It's actually a very nice idea. It's not a bad idea at all. But of course, because it's all a money grab and it's a ridiculous scheme and a Ponzi scheme type situation in China, they just pump these things out without doing proper market research, without actually seeing if it was viable or not. And so the end result is fields and fields of thousands of hundreds of thousands of abandoned vehicles that are now going to rot. Now, this is where it gets insidious. These cars are electric vehicles. And that means they have batteries in them. So not only have you created a lot of waste by developing cars that are not going to be used and that are going to be left to rot, I mean steel and glass and liquids and chemicals and all the rest that goes into it, but the batteries. Everybody knows that these electric batteries that are used in electric vehicles are incredibly complicated and require a lot of very dangerous mining and chemical processes to create. There are human rights atrocities attached to making these batteries, if you want to look into it, child labor, slave labor, that kind of thing. But the detriment to the earth in mining all of these chemicals and all of the materials needed to create these electric vehicle batteries is just insane. So now you've created all of this environmental damage to make these cars, and then you just let them rot in a field. And of course, now they're going to create even more environmental damage because they're going to sit there for however long with all of these chemicals and batteries in them and all the rest of it. And they're going to pollute the environment further. So it's like a double whammy. Not only have you damaged the environment making them, but now you're damaging the environment by discarding them. And this is where China tricks everyone. You see, you hear about their great green initiatives, this being one of them. Oh, look, China's really pushing forward in renewable energy and electric cars. And if you just read headlines and you look at the numbers, etc., you would think China's doing a very good job. But what you're not seeing is the fact that China is actually destroying the earth at a rate never before seen. So you have to look past the facade, and people still don't seem to get this. China is an opaque country. They block all of this information from the rest of the world. You would not be able to just see this. If a company does something like this in the West, You bet your bottom dollar there's going to be a lot of eyes on it. A lot of big news outlets will cover this. There will be, heads will roll. People will have to reply to this. The companies would have to pay some kind of a fine for damaging the environment or for doing bad things like this, like an oil spill or something like that. We know that there are ways to deal with these things, but because we don't see these things in China, nothing gets done. These massive fields of electric cars just sit there rotting. China's green technology initiatives that you keep hearing about are mostly bullshit and a smokescreen to hide the fact that they're doing all sorts of environmental crimes. And remember, it's all about turning a profit. It's not about saving the environment or anything like that. It's a propaganda push and it's a money grab. They want your investment. They'll say, hey, look, invest in China, invest in these green initiatives. You feel good, you go and invest your money. It's being used for wasteful projects like this that really damage the earth. So think twice before investing in China.
Yeah. All right, how about that? Pretty strange. Didn't know if you guys knew what was going on in China as far as the electric cars go. But yeah, they just want to be able to claim they're number one. They're selling more electric vehicles than Tesla and so forth. But I don't think that's exactly true. What do you guys think? Anyway, yeah, throwing them away by the hundreds of thousands. Pretty amazing. But they get a free pass because they're China. All right, Alabama joins pushback against the CBDC. How about that? Alabama unanimously passed a new law that prohibits government agencies in the state from accepting CBDC as payment, and it bars the state from participating in any testing of a central bank digital currency by the Federal Reserve. Other states have also taken steps to block the use of CBDCs. Florida and Indiana recently enacted laws that ban the use of the central bank digital currency as money. At the root of the move toward government digital currency is the war on cash. The elimination of cash creates the potential for the government to track and even control consumer spending. The implementation or not bad federal programs ultimately gets down to the number of roadblocks put up by the states and the willingness of the people to participate. Another state has taken action hoping to hinder the implementation of the CBDCs. So good for Alabama. And I'm interested to see what other states are involved. It mentions Florida and Indiana, but hopefully there's a few others too. Anyway, it's a short article here on needtoknow.news. It's also on News Wars. So look at that one if you have a chance. But yeah, I guess that's good news, although I think they're going to be overridden eventually when they crash everything, when they crash the global economy, seems to me. But at least they're trying to push back, so I think that's a good thing. Another needtoknow.news article, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. exposes toxic chemicals in the water that may affect sexuality and gender. RFK Jr. said, boys are swimming through a soup of toxic chemicals today, and many of those are endocrine disruptors. I'm sure you guys know all about this. There's atrazine throughout our water supply, which that's a weed killer. If you in a lab put atrazine in a tank full of frogs, it will chemically castrate and forcibly feminize every frog in there. And 10% of the male frogs will turn into fully viable females able to produce viable eggs. And if it's doing that to frogs, there's a lot of other evidence that it's doing it to humans as well. Mainstream media ignores and or maligns Kennedy. Mark Dice chimed in and added that BPA, which may affect gender, fertility, and cardiovascular problems, has been removed from some food packaging but is now showing up in clothing. And of course, here's the famous AJ here, who's gotten himself into hot water for saying it's turning the frickin' frogs gay years ago when he mentioned that. And turns out he's exactly right. And people just want to demonize him for even bringing it up. But now you've got RFK Jr. out there saying the same thing. So pretty interesting. But that is on needtoknow.news. Got one more on that site. China, another China story. China announces support for Palestinian statehood. China is backing Palestinian statehood in a two-state solution with Israel based on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem and its capital. Israel rejected the plan to restore the 1967 border. In a recent meeting between Xi Jinping and Palestinian Authority President Abbas, Xi reiterated Chinese support for the Palestinian Authority becoming a full member of the UN. But the United States opposes full Palestinian UN membership, barring a peace deal with Israel. China aims to be the mediator in the conflict. Peace negotiations have been stalled since 2014. Saudi Arabia said that normalization with Israel can only happen if the Palestinians get their own state. Palestinians' internal divisions have posed other obstacles to peacemaking as the Islamist Hamas movement that rules Gaza is sworn to Israel's destruction. So pretty interesting how China is stepping out here in favor of the Palestinians and Palestinian statehood. Didn't know if you guys knew about that. I did not. Fairfax County, Virginia, this is on notthebee.com, takes shotguns away from the police and replaces them with beanbags. You can almost feel crime going down. They've switched their patrol shotguns for less lethal beanbag guns. I guess they've talked the criminals into doing the same thing. Maybe they're just going to use squirt guns. That might be just as effective. Consider it the cornhole approach to crime fighting. New solution provides officers with an additional option that they can use when faced with less lethal situations, police said in a release on Wednesday. Says, I'm all for the police having additional options, but this is not an additional option. It's the removal of one option for another. The department took 800 shotguns out of circulation and put 630 beanbag shotguns into use. We may live in an era of 2 + 2 = 5, but I'm pretty sure that 630 is still less than 800, meaning they not only took away the shotguns, they left 170 police officers without even beanbags to defend themselves. No big deal, right? It's not like crime in Fairfax is on the rise or anything. Then here's a headline, FairfaxTimes.com, crime trends upward across Fairfax County, which I think that's pretty much the case across almost all counties. This data builds on an upward trend in which crimes against person and crimes against property jumped by 10.5% and 19.1% respectively from 21 to 22. The Fairfax County Police Department insists they are doing everything they can, most of which involves you doing everything you can. Says what they really are saying is that crime is up not because of bad public policy, but because of a bad public. So anyway, yep, beanbag guns, and there you can see some here. That's what they look like. So anyway, and then they're talking about the e-bikes as well. They've got police officers on e-bikes instead of in patrol cars. So pretty wild. If you live in Fairfax County, Virginia, just be aware of what the police have. Okay, mostimportantnews.com. The UN's new fact-checking system called iVerify will be used to crack down on misinformation, quote-unquote, all over the world. So I think I wondered out loud the other day on the last broadcast how they were going to do this, and this might help explain. I didn't know about iVerify. It says our world is becoming a creepier place with each passing day. Most of us just want to live our lives in peace without excessive governmental interference, but unfortunately the control freaks that are running things just can't help themselves. Ultimately, they aren't going to be happy until they are able to watch, track, monitor, and control virtually everything that we write, say, and do. I would say even more than that. This is one of the big reasons that they are gearing up to introduce central bank digital currencies all over the Western world. Such digital currencies will make it much easier for them to control us financially. And a new tool that was just introduced by the UN will make it much easier for them to control what we write on the internet. iVerify system is here. It says the UN's new fact-checking system is going to be a game changer. That doesn't sound good. But so far, the mainstream media is being really quiet about it. Perhaps that's because they don't want millions of us to object to this sort of tyranny. I'm sure they will get a pass. So let's see what this says. The UN developed iVerify in conjunction with big tech companies and Soros-funded organizations, and will be used to crack down on disinformation and hate speech all over the globe. Which, of course, is, say it with me, simply speech that they disagree with. It says the United Nations has unveiled an automated fact-checking service to counter so-called disinformation and hate speech on the internet in a project partnered with big tech and Soros-funded organizations in response to what they brand as online information pollution, which they claim is a global challenge. The United Nations Development Program has launched its iVerify platform to counter alleged disinformation and hate speech online. The global body's automated fact-checking tool was developed in partnership with the UN International Computing Center, Facebook, and Google-funded fact-checker Medan, and Meta-owned CrowdTangle and the Soros-funded International Fact-Checking Network. Wow. Talk about a bunch of criminals listed there. Needless to say, this tool will not be used to crack down on points of view that big tech and Soros agree with. Instead, it will be used to crack down on those that choose to be independent thinkers, and that should greatly alarm all of us. Of course, iVerify is not the only very strange development that has been in the news in recent days. Oh, okay. Then it goes on and talks about some other important news, like softball-sized hail, which that's a separate story. But yeah, call that chemical ice nucleation, right? So yeah, this is kind of two stories in one. But yeah, iVerify, I don't know if you guys knew about that, but it's going to be AI-driven, it sounds like, and instituted by the UN. So we will see. We will see how far that gets. More control. BlackRock recruiter claims senators can be bought for $10,000, and war is good for business, according to James O'Keefe. The undercover chaps and lasses at James O'Keefe's new undercover media venture have done it again, this time tricking a BlackRock recruiter into making several damning admissions. And I think there was a clip of that in the first video that I played tonight. It says, in a series of covertly recorded meetings, recruiter Serge Varley describes how BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, is able to, quote, run the world, end quote, and that it's easier to pull off shenanigans when people aren't thinking about it, quote unquote. According to Varley, U.S. senators can be bought for as little as $10,000. These senators are effing cheap. You got 10 grand, you can buy a senator, which I'm sure the Chinese found out about that quite some time ago, and others. But anyway, yeah, this is on Zero Hedge. There's the full clip here if you want to watch it from O'Keefe Media Group. Schools are now allowing children to identify as cats, horses, dinosaurs, and all sorts of other things. This is on themostimportantnews.com. It says, I seriously should have thought of this when I was a kid. If I could have answered every question a teacher asked by meowing like a cat or roaring like a dinosaur, there is no way they could have ever accused me of getting an answer wrong. And when it was time for a quiz or test, I could have just responded to every question with a paw print. Of course, nobody would have actually been able to get away with such a thing decades ago. When I was a kid, anyone that tried to pull that kind of stunt would have been immediately marched down to the principal's office, I would say, and probably paddled too. Remember that? But now we live at a time when we are supposed to allow people to identify as anything that they want. Things have gotten particularly absurd in the United Kingdom. According to the investigation that was conducted by The Telegraph, schools in the UK are now allowing children to identify as all sorts of things. At a state secondary school in Wales, which of course is where the Prince of Wales hails from, right? One student is said to meow when asked questions by a teacher rather than answering in English, The Telegraph reports. In other schools, one apparently insists on being addressed as a dinosaur. One claims to identify as a horse, while another is said to wear a cape and demands to be acknowledged as a moon. Half of Russia's strategic missile units have been rearmed with hypersonics, Putin says. Putin has a fresh statement reveals that the status of Russia's hypersonic and nuclear-capable arsenal within the context of the Ukrainian war. In early May, Ukraine's military claimed to have intercepted Russian ballistic missiles for the first time in the conflict using a U.S.-made anti-air defense system. The Kremlin rejects the claims, but did confirm it has been using hypersonic missiles within specific or limited operations and long-range launches. Putin said Wednesday, and translated in TASS, about half of the units of Russia's strategic missile force have been equipped with the latest Yars missile systems and are being rearmed with modern Vanguard warheads. He was speaking at an event honoring graduates of the military academies and addressed the unconditional priority of missile readiness. So they are rearming their missiles and making them hypersonic, which I don't think we even have that technology in the U.S. If they do, then they're keeping it hidden. I don't think they do. Anyway, not good news. Not at all. Messiah will come before I join Netanyahu. This is on Israel Today. It says a heated political debate in Israel again focuses on Messianic Jews and a religious government with an eye toward prophetic fulfillment. With Prime Minister Netanyahu's popularity dipping, rumors are again swirling about the makeup of Israel's next government. More than likely, the next election, be it early or on schedule in 2026, will again result in a Netanyahu's Likud as the largest party in Knesset. But will he again forge a coalition with exclusively religious parties of the ultra-Orthodox and national messianic brand, or will Bibi go for a more centrist government? So this guy here that they're talking about states that he will not join Netanyahu, and he says not before Messiah will come. So what does that tell you? Messiah may be coming soon. Says the chance that Messiah will come is a greater chance than I will join Netanyahu, he stressed. This guy, Lieberman. So I think there's a good chance that if he took that bet, he might lose. I think they're on the verge of the Messiah being announced before too long. We'll see. I made videos on that. I don't know if you guys have seen some of those videos, but it's pretty interesting. Prigozhin's gambit, treason by any other name. So this is on Scott Ritter's Substack, and this has a little bit more depth here as far as the whole Prigozhin story. Talking about it from a military standpoint, and it's pretty wild. It's comparing the story here to a Disney film. It says in 1997, Disney animated musical fantasy film Hercules, there's a particularly catchy number called Zero to Hero, which describes the rise of the star of the film from a clumsy boy into a strong and capable man. In the span of less than 24 hours, Prigozhin, the public face of the Wagner Group, a Russian private military contractor with shadowy ties to Russian military intelligence, has flipped the script of this ashes to diamond's tale, transforming an organization that had, through virtue of its impressive battlefield performance, become a legendary symbol of Russian patriotism and strength into a discredited band of disgruntled traitors seeking the violent overthrow of the constitutional government of Russia on behalf of nations who seek the strategic defeat and ultimate destruction of Russia. If Disney were to write a song about Prigozhin and Wagner today, it would be called Hero to Zero. So that kind of sums it up. You can see where he's going with this article. And that kind of backs up what I was saying early on. I think that he really did lose his mind, and that he really thought he could, it's like a megalomaniac or something. He thought he could just waltz in and take over. And Putin was not going to have that happen. Believe me. So anyway, this is a Scott Ritter Substack post is what that is. And so you guys have probably been following the Titanic sub, and I've got several articles pulled up on that whole thing. This was the first meme that I saw. I thought made a lot of sense. This is from End Wokeness. Sunday, it says, U.S. Navy detects implosion of the Titan, doesn't inform the public. Monday, Titan is missing, quote unquote. Tuesday, banging is heard. Wednesday, running out of air. Thursday, wreckage found. They knew the outcome 4 days ago, yet they kept the drama going for the entire week. So that kind of sums it up as far as the timeline of how that happened. This is another one that I found. OceanGate, which is the company that had this submersible, the sub, received $447,000 in public-private partnership loans during the pandemic. So that's a pretty big number. OceanGate, a submersible focus company that owned the Titan submersible that sadly imploded while on a dive touring the Titanic wreck, previously took out a PPP loan for $447,000. Daily Mail reported OceanGate was given a loan back in April of 2020 in order to cover payroll costs of its 22 employees. OceanGate's loan was eventually forgiven, I think pretty much all of them were, due to the fact that they did not lay off any employees during the pandemic. The Daily Mail obtained information regarding OceanGate's PPP loan forgiveness through the site ProPublica. So have a look. Here it is. $447,000, and they forgave $450,000. Includes any accrued interest. So they got $450,000 in free money. So just so you know, tax dollars hard at work, right? And we've got more on the sub as we move forward here. I've got even a couple of videos on it if we have time. I found this article and thought, this is crazy. I've never heard of this. Italian angler feels tremendous tug on his line and reels in a record catfish over 9 feet long from the River Po, and I guess that's in Italy. So this guy caught this 9-foot catfish. I mean, that's like shark length. That's so crazy. And here he is taking pictures with it, and he actually didn't kill it. And if you go down here, and here it is from head to tail. If you go down here and watch this short video that's embedded right here, well, here, let me just show you the last couple seconds. He kind of kisses it and sends it off on its own. So here it is. Let me mute this. And see, it swims away very slowly. So I don't know if it's injured or not. Hopefully not. But it gets away. He lets it go. So pretty wild. A 9-foot catfish. So insane. Anyway, thought that was kind of an interesting story. I don't know what's going on with that. A Nephilim catfish. Prigozhin exiled to Belarus in exchange for peace. Criminal charges dropped. What was this all about? So yeah, this is on Zero Hedge. This entirely bizarre, slightly less than 24-hour short-lived coup attempt has just gotten even stranger given the terms of the truce, which evidently caused Prigozhin to announce his Wagner fighter columns would turn around and go back to their bases. Yeah, the whole thing's pretty bizarre. Wall Street Journal has confirmed, based on Kremlin statements, that as part of the agreement, Prigozhin will leave Russia for Belarus, and criminal charges against him will be dropped. Putin's spokesman Peskov said the fighters will be allowed to sign contracts with the Russian military. So I guess his own fighters would just be absorbed into the Russian military in different forms, I suppose. So, yeah. Anyway, can this even be called an exile, given that the Kremlin's statements at this point aren't even so much as using the word, which has a clear punitive implication? The irony remains that one can get a much harsher punishment for mere cannabis vape pens in the country. Yeah, more so than supposed treason. Which, again, who knows for sure if that's really what happened, but I've got a couple of memes and some other things we're going to look at when we get there. Pretty strange. Yeah, so this is one of them. This isn't really a meme, but this is a tweet that I found pretty early on. I guess it was yesterday. It says, lost $6 billion Pentagon Ukraine money explained. Intelligence sources now say the mystery money was used to bribe Prigozhin personally and pay Wagner fighters to turn on Putin. Each soldier was promised $100,000 and had $50,000 deposited right away. Who knows if it's true? It is an interesting thought if that is what indeed happened. No one knows. And then this is a further explanation here from Kim.com. Did Putin and Prigozhin play the CIA to the tune of $6 billion? Kim.com has offered his take on the Wagner Group in Russia, intimating that Wagner boss Prigozhin may have collected billions from the CIA to stage a coup and then aborted the coup, which that's entirely possible. Several observers, such as MTG, have speculated the Wagner Group may have had U.S. backing. On Saturday, Kim.com has offered his explanation of the background of the inner Russian strife. My view on the actions by Prigozhin and the Wagner Group in Russia: this started as a power struggle between Prigozhin and Shoigu. In the beginning of the special military operation, Shoigu and his team made mistakes, and Prigozhin became a strong critic of Shoigu. So, who knows? Who knows? But it is an interesting thought to think that they got the $6 billion, or at least part of it. Yeah. Thanks for the $6.2 billion, suckers. I put that on my Facebook page. I thought that was pretty appropriate. And, may or may not be true, but it's very possible. He's definitely a savvy guy, Putin is. Reclaim the Net. DHS outlines digital ID initiative for travel, immigration, and citizenship status, employment, residency status, and more, all while paying lip service to privacy. Yeah, of course, they always couch it in something benevolent. Oh, I just looked at the clock, and it's 11:11. Pretty amazing. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security's DHS recent unveiling of a $1.7 million initiative to foster the development of digital wallets will raise eyebrows among privacy advocates, while DHS's Science and Technology Directorate ostensibly presents this as the privacy-preserving digital credentials wallet and verifiers. Wow, that's a mouthful. SVIP topic call. The devil will be in the details, as it always is. The plan is to use the system for travel, immigration, and citizenship status, employment, residency status, and more. A look at the DHS's announcement shows a particular emphasis on wallets that are compatible with the World Wide Web Consortium W3C verifiable credential data model and the W3C decentralized identifier standards. On the surface, this may appear as a step towards standardization. However, this type of centralization could create a monoculture that will speed up the move towards centralized digital IDs, which could be the entire plan. You think? Anyway, that's on reclaimthenet.org. And here's one more from there. Bank for International Settlements publishes its blueprint for CBDCs, praises programmable money. Yeah, but not in Alabama, right? According to what we read earlier. In a press release earlier this week, the Bank for International Settlements announced that it will be throwing its weight. And if you've seen the guy that runs that, that's a lot of weight. He looks like Jabba the Hutt. I don't know if you've seen him. Forget his name. Behind the central bank digital currencies, publishing a blueprint of a future monetary system underpinned by this type of money. And the BIS also heaped praise on the concept of programmable money. The announcement of the blueprint that's supposed to represent the foundation of the world's new financial and monetary system came just days after reports that the BIS and the Bank of England had completed a CBDC project. Yeah. The project is dubbed Rosalind. It's described as a joint experiment by the BIS Innovation Hub London Centre and the Bank of England that produced 33, it's always 33s, 66s, API functionalities and looked into over 30 retail CBDC use cases. So they are pushing this thing hard and fast. And being how it's the Bank of England, you can bet the good old king is involved in that somehow. So yeah. All right, let's keep moving here. Zelensky claims Russia is planning a nuclear attack at Zaporizhia plant. And never mind the fact that Russia controls the plant, and why would they want to attack it? They control it. So Zelensky said Putin's Russian forces were preparing to unleash a radiation leak at the Russian-controlled Zaporizhia nuclear plant. Tit for tat about false flag radiation attacks and nuclear war is not now either. Says the WHO, World Homicide Organization, has said that the ruling classes should prepare their slaves for radiation emergencies, while Russia claims it's Ukraine that will use the dirty bomb to attack. Yeah, and they'll blame it on Russia. That's what they will do if that happens. So, yep. Anyway, that's on activistpost.com. All right, well, let's keep moving here. We've got a bunch of articles here on Gateway Pundit pulled up. And I thought I would just read through some of these top headlines on this first page. It's pretty amazing. We're going to look at this one a little closer, so I'll read that one in a minute. Disney Star Wars hires transgender YouTuber for major role in upcoming series. Abigail Thorne. So, good news, huh? Says Democrat Rhode Island state senator arrested for keying an SUV with Biden sucks bumper sticker. So this guy got arrested for keying a car, and he's a Rhode Island state senator. Boy, hitting a little close to home there, I guess. Box office analyst estimates that Disney has lost $890 million in the last 8 studio releases, including Woke Little Mermaid. Man. San Francisco grocery stores installing metal emergency gates to stop rampant shoplifting. Blinken refused to say if the U.S. will do anything to stop China from building military spy base in Cuba, which that kind of tells you the answer by reading just the headline. 2 killed, 15 injured after a shooting at a Michigan street party. Wow. Okay, well, let's go ahead and peruse a few of the articles that I've got pulled up. One of them is this first one here I've got pulled up is something that I've done multiple stories on, multiple videos on, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. Test launch of Russian nuclear torpedo may be imminent. Situation Ukraine deteriorating. China making moves. Biden administration failing to protect national security in increasingly dangerous world. So you know what this is? This is the torpedo that we've heard so much about. It says the K-329 Belgorod is the advanced Oscar II class submarine commissioned by Putin in 2022 and intended to serve as a launch platform for Poseidon nuclear torpedo drones. So this is the you guys, I'm sure, have heard of the drone that can be positioned off of the coast of a country and then exploded and will cause a tsunami of radioactive water to go over the coastline, and thus wiping out everything in the way. So what I personally feel like that they will launch at some point, perhaps in response to a U.S. attack on Russia. I've talked about this before. I really feel like it will be in response to something. I don't think that they will make a first strike with something like this. But anyway, let's read a little bit more about this. Poseidon says, according to a report by USNI News, Poseidon drones are a strategic nuclear weapons designed to circumvent the West's growing ballistic missile defense capability. After a launch, the 80-foot nuclear torpedoes, 80 feet, would move undetected across the ocean floor before detonating a 100-megaton cobalt-enhanced warhead. Says, let's see if it goes into... Yeah, the resulting radioactive tidal wave would completely decimate any target coastline, creating wide areas of radioactive contamination, rendering them unusable for military, economic, or other activity for a long time. Now, take those few words and superimpose, go read Revelation 18, and envision New York City and what is talked about in Revelation 18 being wiped out, all in a matter of really less than an hour. So that's how I see things playing out, unfortunately. And again, if the U.S. is Sodom and Gomorrah, I don't think God is going to withhold his judgment if this is what we're choosing, if you know what I mean. So anyway, there's quite a bit more here on the Poseidon torpedo, if you guys want to look at this. But this had just this came out just as this show was going live tonight, so I thought I would bring it up. Pretty wild. Gateway Pundit is where that's at, thegatewaypundit.com. NTSB reports cockpit voice recorder still missing from the deadly Virginia Cessna plane crash. You guys probably remember when this happened a few weeks ago. The National Transportation Safety Board has released a 4-page preliminary report of the fatal crash of the Cessna 560 aircraft that flew unresponsive over Washington, D.C., meaning Mordor, and eventually crashed in Montebello, Virginia, leaving 4 passengers on board dead. Says that the airplane, as of May 2023, was equipped with a cockpit voice recorder. However, at the time of this publication, it has not been located. I'm sure it probably just fell out as the plane was flying around. It's strange how stuff just disappears. So I'm sure it's probably it will probably show up when the it's probably on the same in the same place. You can just go look in New York City for it, because that's where they found the passports of the hijackers. Remember, and all the buildings falling down, everything in ash and burning up, and they found perfectly pristine hijackers' passports in the middle of the streets in New York City on 9/11. So that's probably where this cockpit voice recorder box is. If they just go to New York, they'll probably find it. Anyway, I'm just being silly, but man, so insane. Obviously a cover-up going on there. And yet another train wreck. Train plunges into Yellowstone River in Montana after bridge collapses. Hazardous spill feared. Man. Train plunged into the Yellowstone River in Montana on Saturday. According to reports, fuel spilled into the river. A large federal emergency response is underway after 8 rail cars plunged into the river when the bridge collapsed. Man. Says Currently, a large emergency response is underway after a freight train fell into the Yellowstone River near Laurel, Montana. Says monitoring the train derailment in Stillwater County, and the state is standing by to support as Montana Rail Link and county officials assess their needs. I'm trying to see what all was in the train cars. Multiple cars plunged in the Yellowstone River, and the wreck was reportedly leaking fuel into the river. Yeah, but it had to be more than just fuel, I would think. Not sure what else was it. It says developing, so maybe they didn't know or haven't gotten any more information on it, but this is dated yesterday. So yeah, that's interesting. Boy, more train crashes, train wrecks. Man. Just in, Carrie Lake's 81 million votes my arse debuts on Billboard's digital song sales chart for all genres, hits number 1 on 2 more charts. So this is a music video and song that I played 2 or 3 weeks ago on the show. Thought it was really good. Carrie Lake's new hit song, 81 million votes my arse, my donkey, with the Truth Bombers and Mailman Media, debuted on Billboard's digital song sales chart and hit number 1 on 2 Billboard charts as it continues to skyrocket in sales. I didn't even know they had sales anymore in the music business. Mailman Media is the same production team that brought us Justice for All, featuring Donald Trump and the J6 Choir. Hit single featuring President Trump reached number 1 on the Billboard charts and iTunes. So you can listen to it here. I don't have it queued up today, but it is on this article if you guys want to hear it again. It's a good track. Really good one. Mark Zuckerberg agrees to fight Elon Musk in a cage match. No, this is not the Babylon Bee. I saw this and I'm like, whoa, are you serious? Because I just mentioned like a week or two ago about Zuckerberg doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Remember that one? And he got beat pretty bad, and apparently he got knocked out or a chokehold that made him have the lights go out for a little while because he was snoring on the mat, and he didn't want the story out. He didn't want the story to come out. Well, anyways, this is yet another development here. Twitter owner Elon Musk recently tweeted that he would be up for a cage fight with Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg about the Facebook founder. Has now posted that he's ready to go. Over on Instagram, Zuckerberg posted a screenshot of Musk's tweet with the caption, "Send me location." So they're ready to go. Could you imagine? I mean, I probably would actually watch that. I don't know about you guys. Just to see who would win. This tweet says, LOL, I love you, Elon, but you better start training, this person said to Musk. And send me the location. Send me location is what Zuck reportedly says here. The Verge reports that they have confirmed Zuckerberg's tweet was not a joke. The story speaks for itself. Meta spokesperson told the outlet, "I'm up for a cage match if he is," Elon Musk said a few days ago. Musk responded to a screenshot of Zuck's post by saying, "Vegas Octagon." He added, "I have this great move that I call the walrus, where I just lie on top of my opponent and do nothing." That's pretty funny. So, yeah, it says Zuckerberg's reportedly been training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for about a year. So, that would be pretty funny. I don't know. That would certainly capture a lot of people's attention for a while. So, maybe they'll be all for it if it helps the Democrats somehow. Pretty wild. It's a strange world, isn't it? Breaking, Tennessee Republican lawmakers received threatening letters from liberal activists containing white powder, prompting a lockdown. Several of Tennessee's Republican lawmakers received letters with an unknown white powder on Thursday, prompting a lockdown of the 6th floor legislative offices of the Hull building in Nashville. So, not too surprising there, but it says that Tennessee House Republican Caucus spokesperson Easton said that the letters contain obvious threats made by a liberal activist specifically targeting Republicans. Nearly 100 of these letters were also sent to Donald Trump and several Republican lawmakers in Kansas last week. FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and the Tennessee Highway Patrol's Nashville District all have teams on the ground to investigate the situation in Nashville. So, once again, Nashville in the news. Not in a good way. U.S. Navy has been using Xbox controllers for submarine periscopes since 2018. I'm sure you guys have probably seen the, some of the sub footage and the guys showing the Xbox controller, video game controller and stuff. Well, this is further confirmation here. It says, earlier in the week, news broke about the missing OceanGate sub used a game controller to operate the entire submarine. The new details were revealed after a resurfaced video from 2022 showed the CEO of OceanGate, Stockton Rush, showing a CBS News correspondent a Logitech gaming controller and saying, "We run the whole thing with this game controller." I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Oh yeah, implosion. That could go wrong. But the implosion, though, from what I understand, had to do with not the game controller, but the fact that the thing wasn't made out of steel or something that's really tough to squish like a tin can. In fact, it was made out of like carbon fiber or something that just folded, just like basically a plastic sub. I mean, what did they think would happen? So, yeah. So along those lines, let me see if I've got any videos here. Yeah, here's one about the sub. Let's watch this one real quick, and I can give my voice a break here. So it's called Negligent Homicide, OceanGate and the Titanic 5, What You Need to Know. All right, I think you get the idea. I think mostly I was focused on the idea that the company, OceanGate, and the negligence that was involved there versus the timeline. Obviously, he recorded that before we even found out exactly what happened, and the fact that it was crushed like a little can, or like I said before, it was essentially a plastic submarine. And it was crushed, and the people were most likely liquefied because of the horrendous pressure at that level. I think it was like something like along the order of 6,000 pounds per square inch or something like that at that depth. It's a massive amount of pressure, and obviously that piece of equipment was not geared toward being able to even withstand that. So it seems to me like somebody's going to be held accountable. I do think that the people that were reported to have been killed, I think those people probably actually were. I think that I'm not one of those people that say, oh, they're fine and they're just developed this as a story and it's a front for something else. And I don't know. I have my doubts that that's the case. I really feel like that these people probably were actually killed, and it was mostly as a result of negligence on the part of the company and the people who were obviously steeped in wokeness, who didn't want to hire the right people to do the job correctly. So anyway, that's where I'm at with that whole thing. But what a mess! What a mess! And I saw this earlier today, and many of you guys will know who this person is. Hollywood legend in the grip of Alzheimer's. I remember thinking about him not too long ago. I don't remember why, but it says the family say that he no longer recognizes them. And you guys remember Jack Hanna, the famous zookeeper? He would show up pretty often on Late Night with David Letterman early on, before Dave went completely nuts. He's 76 years old, Jack Hanna is, and he's diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Now gotten to the point where he doesn't even recognize his own family. So kind of sad. I didn't know if you guys remember Jack Hanna. I liked him. I always, got a laugh out of any of the animals when he would bring those on to the late night show. And I think he was even on with Johnny Carson some as well. So anyway, that's too bad to hear that, but I wasn't even sure he was still around. Video confirms Prigozhin leaving Rostov. Kremlin claims he will go to Belarus as part of the deal, which we covered that before. Information Liberation has some pretty good articles if you want to pull that up at any point. Prigozhin ends march on Moscow to avert bloodbath, agrees to withdraw forces. I think hopefully he saw the error of his ways, if indeed he was gone awry, if he'd in fact become the megalomaniac that people say that he was, lost his mind or something, like he thought he could actually take over. So apparently he, some sense was talked into him, unless the whole thing was a scam to begin with and it was all about getting money out of the U.S. and NATO and so forth, which that's possible too. Again, I don't think we'll ever really know the answer to that. And I did find this. I won't bother playing this, but this is Paul Joseph Watson's report on the sub. Questions continue to swirl about the sub implosion. When did they know? I thought it was a pretty good article. It's on summit.news if you want to take a look at that. Again, I'll link to that in my Substack post tomorrow. And he's got quite a few other really good articles on summit.news. If you guys ever want to check that site out, I think it's pretty good. I thought this one with Biden in India was pretty funny. Hilarious video. Biden slowly realizes Indian national anthem isn't the U.S. national anthem. And he's got his hand, I guess, supposedly over his heart, although I don't think that's his heart way down there. But he kind of droops, and then he puts it back, brings it back up. But you don't put your hand over your heart for the Indian national anthem. You'll notice that the guy from India is not even doing that. So pretty wild. So there's some good stuff over there on that website. And then on InfoWars, I've got a staggering 61% of the, quote, misinformation reports the CIS forwarded to social media companies were taken down or labeled. Center for Internet Security, CIS, appears to have played a large role in assisting in online censorship. After an investigative blitz is taking place within the corridors of the U.S. Congress and House Republicans, spearheaded by Rep. Mark Green and Dan Bishop, have doubled down on allegations of clandestine alliance, which they assert stealthily curtailed American voices during the high-stakes 2020 elections. You don't say. The duo's letter to an independent guardian of electoral integrity alleges that the Department of Homeland Security, particularly its cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency, played a pivotal role in this purported triangulation involving nonprofit organizations and social media giants. So here's the letter. What's particularly intriguing is the unfolding saga that is the alleged role of the Center for Internet Security, CIS. The GOP legislators posit that the CIS was instrumental in crafting a shadowy misinformation reporting system, effectively orchestrating a symphony of interactions between election officials, CISA itself, and the gatekeepers of social media platforms. The system, they contend, was not merely a passive conduit, but was instrumental in relaying information that was ultimately suppressed by social media outlets. Astonishingly, CIS is alleged to have revealed that a striking 61% of cases funneled through this pipeline were either extinguished or labeled as misinformation. So obviously it was working very well. And they're labeling everything they disagree with as misinformation and propaganda. Wow. Russian coup attempt was a failed USA operation that only made Putin stronger, a report says. I heard this earlier. This was Mike Adams' report, and I think one could argue either way, that there's a case to be made that it made Putin stronger, and then there's also a case to be made that it made him look bad as well. But I think overall it probably did help Putin, but we'll see what happens. It says failed insurrection that ended with Wagner Group's leaders exiled in Belarus comes days after Pentagon reported $6.2 billion disappearing in an accounting error. Mike Adams breaks down how the failed Russian coup by the Wagner Group was actually led by U.S. intelligence in a bid to oust Putin as the West Ukraine prospects continue to dwindle. So I think he does make some good points in the video here. So feel free to look at this if you want. You can find it on band.video or on Brighteon, or you can go to InfoWars and get that as well. Train with chemicals slides into Montana River. This is one I mentioned earlier. 7 cars that fell into the water contained molten sulfur and hot asphalt. So that's what was in them. I thought I read somewhere what was in them. A train carrying potentially hazardous materials has derailed in Montana, with several cars ending up with the water, which we mentioned all this earlier. So they're saying that it was hot asphalt and molten sulfur. That does not sound good. Anyway, man, I don't know if it's the rotting infrastructure in this country that's just falling apart, or if this particular one was a planned accident, quote unquote, or what. Who knows? But again, we're having train derailments. It seems like almost not every day, but every other day, every few weeks. Media claims U.S. intelligence knew about Prigozhin's planned mutiny in mid-June, which was just a couple weeks ago. Over the past 2 weeks, the intelligence agencies briefed the White House, senior officials at the State Department, and the Pentagon and Congress, according to the reports. says U.S. intelligence agencies received indications that the head of the Wagner Group, Prigozhin, might be plotting a mutiny and informed the White House and other government agencies so they would not be caught off guard. So, who knows? And that could play into the missing $6.2 billion that got funneled to them, to Prigozhin and company, if that's what happened. Again, we'll probably never know. VaccineImpact.com, biometric national digital IDs are coming soon to pave the way for CBDCs, something that we've mentioned a couple times already tonight. But more information here on this article. The coming crisis of cities. Get out now while you still can. Talking about San Francisco in particular. So not too many new articles, I guess, this week on Vaccine Impact. However, they've got a few there that you might want to look at. And geoengineeringwatch.org, global alert news for this week. Extreme hail events have just hammered Colorado, Texas, Kansas, and parts of the northeastern U.S. Climate engineering, chemical ice nucleation, cloud seeding operations are core to the equation. Temporary toxic surface cooldowns are a constant objective of the geoengineers, and resulting consequences aren't a consideration for them. Snow fell this week in Utah, while in the far north, polar ice is melting and Arctic forests are incinerating. The planet's former energy balance has been completely capsized. Earth's oceans are superheating, thus further fueling the already ongoing and accelerating mass die-off of marine life. What will it take to wake the masses? Yeah, so good question. And so that's the newest show, Global Alert News broadcast from Mr. Dane on geoengineeringwatch.org. So hopefully you guys already caught that. If you're not on the news list, feel free to jump on there. It's free and can easily be found. Just go to geoengineeringwatch.org and you'll get a pop-up if you haven't visited the site in some time that you can put your email address in on the pop-up. You can also go to the side column over here, and there's a spot here to jump on the newsletter right here, to jump on the newsletter list. So feel free to do that. Again, it's free, and you'll get the email blast every week when we send that out. And then if he does any special articles, postings, videos, that kind of thing, you'll also get the newsletter at that time. Email newsletter sign up. Right here it is. So feel free to jump on there if you want. And Lost Arts Radio Show is another show that I produce. Lost Arts Radio show this week was Joette Calabrese, Cures Without Harm, the Practice of Homeopathy, Master Teacher Joette Calabrese, who I thought was really great. Got to meet her and talk to her a little bit on Thursday when we recorded the interview with her, and she talks to Richard at, I don't know, for probably about an hour or so, I guess, something like that. And I thought it turned out really good. I didn't know all that much about homeopathy, and I thought it was very, very interesting, and would highly recommend it if you're interested in homeopathic cures, if you can say that word, for issues that you might be having, really of any kind, any sort of health issues. I think she does a really good job of explaining what it's all about and where to go for more information. So feel free to check that show out. It's available now on all the different Lost Arts Radio platforms, Brighteon and Rumble and BitChute, as well as Blog Talk Radio. It's not on YouTube, but it's on pretty much all the other platforms that we have. And the links are all right here on this page. And again, we'll link to this on the Substack post for tomorrow, but you can go to lostartsradio.com and find it. That's where it's at. So anyways, I guess that's all I had for tonight. Let's see if we've kind of mentioned a little bit of that earlier, so I don't think we need to spend any more time on it. The Diamond Disc Substack page here is where you sign up for my email list if you haven't already, so feel free to do that. And there is the store page. I'm thinking about adding a few more products just to see if people are interested in a few other things. We've only got t-shirts on here at the moment, but I think it seems to be pretty good products from what I can tell. So I may add a few more things, maybe some mugs and things like that as well. So keep watching on the Diamond Report store. And you can find me on Telegram as well. I mentioned Putin Direct. That's one of the Telegram channels I follow. I think it's pretty interesting that he's on there. But this is the Diamond Report on Telegram, and I like to get on there and share things, special things for the Telegram subscribers. So every now and then we'll do something that's only for them, for the people that are on that platform. Like it might be a special live stream kind of thing, or it might just be sharing videos before you can find them on the other channels. Like we had early access, for instance, for the Joette Calabrese interview. We posted that a few hours or a day or so early on Telegram for the Telegram folks, so they could see it a day or two before it actually was released. So, and then I shared that on the Diamond Report Telegram page as well. So feel free to follow along on Telegram if you want to. And then this is my other page, Take It to the Lord in Prayer on Telegram. So yeah. And then I'm also on YouTube, as you guys know, and Rumble and BitChute, Brighteon, and ClickView. And then I think I showed my Diamond Disc Audio page last week as well. This is my normal business that I have, which is mastering and mixing. I'm in the music business, so that's what I do as a day job. And do a lot of postings and stuff. Not as many as I used to on Facebook, but I do spend quite a bit of time researching things and, trying to put this news broadcast together every week. So anyway, feel free to stay in touch if you want to. Otherwise, I wanted to wrap the show up tonight with another video that I've got that's actually a really good one. I don't know if you guys know who Drew Hernandez is, but I really respect him and like the way he talks about certain subjects, and I think he's doing a really good job. He fills in on the fourth hour on Alex's show, I think on Thursdays, if I remember right, and I always look forward to hearing what he has to say. So I think what we'll do is we'll play this few minutes of this video. It's not the whole section from the show last week, but it's several minutes worth, and it's called Drew Hernandez Exposes the Light That Will Bring Humanity Out of the Darkness. So I think that was a pretty good one. We'll play just a little section of it. So yes, thank you guys for your work and for hanging in there with me tonight. I appreciate Kelly and Susan and anyone else who's in the chat room here. TB says any hats any hats available. Yeah, I do. There are hats. I haven't designed any yet, but there are hats available. So I'll look into doing a design on the hats. So yeah, TB, we'll do that. They have different. It's a print-on-demand type of situation. Let me go back to the page I'm talking about here. It's a print-on-demand thing. So the hats or the shirts, the whatever coffee mugs, those things don't exist until you place an order for it. But I have the design sitting there in the store, and so then if you order something, then they print them and ship them to you. That's basically how it works. So yeah, they do have hats. I'll look into putting together a design for that, and it won't take too long. So thank you guys for being here tonight. I think we pretty much covered it. I had some other videos to show, but I don't really think we had too much else that was super important, super pressing. So why don't we just close with this Drew Hernandez video that I mentioned, and I think that should do it. And I wanted to mention that I will be traveling next weekend. I think I will still probably be able to do the live show, although it will probably look a little different. I may have to go back to my other platform for one show. So I'll let you guys know if something changes, if I can't do the show for some weird reason. If I can't, it would only be because of an internet issue. Timing-wise, I certainly will have time to do it. So I think we'll plan to do that. And I will let you guys know on the Substack. So if you're on the list, you'll know if I can't do it for some reason. We'll figure something else out, either do it on an alternate night or something else. So anyway, God bless you guys. Thank you guys for being here tonight, and certainly appreciate your time. And let's watch this Drew Hernandez clip. I think it was a good one. So have a good night, you guys, and hope you have a good week as well.
I wanted to get into some of the news, especially talking about false prophets, deceivers, and those that claim to be speaking on behalf of God. You got to really be careful and guard your heart, because a lot of people might identify wolves, people that are obviously misrepresenting Christ and God in such a miserable way. It happens in many various different ways.